welcome back to another episode of Piping Talks. And this time we have a drummer all the way from New Zealand. And it's someone that I've actually never met in person. We just talked for a minute or two before going live. And I'm excited to dive more into her story. She's a leading drummer of a grade one band, which is quite exciting. And just get to know her story, and also sort of like what it's like to be a leading drummer of a grade one band, and especially in New Zealand as well. So we have Louise Bentley live today, and I'm excited to dive into the conversation. So Louise, how are you doing?
Good, thank you. It's good to be on.
You good? Yeah, we just talked for a minute, and I just realized that I mixed the time. So I wanted to say sorry live for mixing up the time by an hour. But yeah, Louise, so you're based in New Zealand, and I can tell from the accent that this is where you're from. You were born and raised in New Zealand.
Yes, sure am.
Where about?
I grew up in Rotorua, or Rotorua if you're non-Māori, but it's a little place in the centre of the North Island. Lots of people know it for the geothermal activity. It's quite a tourist hotspot. It's got lots of geothermal stuff, so it smells, but you get used to it. So I grew up there, and then I'm actually just leaving Hamilton. So I live in Hamilton for a few years now, maybe 4 years. I'm just moving up to Auckland, so currently in transition, mostly moved, but a little bit of transition still.
Got it. Cool. And was pipe band always sort of part of your growing up? Was pipe band a thing that was at home? Was it your family into it, or friends, or how did you get into it?
Pipe band was not a thing for me growing up. I grew up on a little farm just outside Rotorua, grew up off grid, going to our batch at the coast, holiday home. And then one day we were kind of looking for a new hobby, and Dad thought, he used to play in the army band, playing drums. So he took us down to the local band hall and said, "This is what I did. Are you interested?" And my sister wanted to play the pipes, and I didn't want to be the same as my sister. So I said, I've got the drums. And I actually wanted to play the tenor drum because I thought it looked cool. Because growing up in New Zealand, there's like a multicultural dance almost that has a performance with poi, and they're like pom-pom, similar to a tenor stick, except they're on a string, not a stick. And I thought, that looks cool. I've done the poi before. I'd like to have tenor drums a go. But I was told I had to learn snare drumming first to understand the theory. And then I was shipped off to a summer school in Christchurch for snare drum, and never looked back.
And never looked back. Do you have do you know how to play the tenor? Like, is it part of, like, you're like, I cannot really want to learn, and you learned like later?
I dabble a little bit. So when I was overseas, a couple of the girls in the band taught me a few tunes and things, and I've got a pair of tenor sticks in the back. So every now and then, and I did win a novice tenor solo, and I beat one of the guys who's actually playing in our grade one band now, and I give him so much shit for it.
Do you think it's important to know tenor? We'll dive more into it, but now that you're looking back at 2023, 24, you're leading drummer, you play a snare. Do you think that sort of notion of like tenor is important?
Yeah. I think it is actually. It does make a lot of sense. From when I was told when I first learned that it is important to learn the theory as well, and that's why I was put through snare, because sometimes the tenors, because they have only done tenor, they struggle to match up the beats with where it's going in the music or things like that, and so they're more read the rests in the music rather than the notes, and it's vice versa for the snare drummer. We often read the notes and not the rest, because they've got it's a lot more space to flourish, and we've got a lot more notes. So it's quite interesting being able to know a bit of both, so I can understand the theory of the tenor and the theory of the snare. So I'm always tapping through bits for the midsection, and then when we're looking at ensemble, they're able to have a different perspective than a snare drummer as well, and so we're quite collaborative when we put together music.
Nice. And so, all right, so you, your dad was like, "This is what I used to do. Do you like it?" And you start doing snare. You went to the school in Christchurch. And what was the first band? Was Auckland District sort of like one of the first bands you played, or no? I can't. Or was it another
No, the
band?
first band I played for was the City of Rotorua pipe band. They were grade 4B, so effectively grade 5. um, and it was a band of old people and young people, and there was nothing in between. So there was the really new learners and the people who had been there since day dot. It was a good place to learn, and there's been a lot of talent that has come through the City of Rotorua pipe band. Angus Crow had a stint at
Right.
Rotorua when he was growing up, and Davy Clark. I was taught by Davy Clark's dad initially, Willie Clark. He started me off teaching, and he's just gone to win the Worlds with vocal, which is awesome. And a couple of pipers have come out of Rotorua who went to Worlds
Oh,
with
I think
various
I
grade 1
lost
bands.
you. I don't know if you can
So
hear
yeah, it's
me.
actually been quite a little hotspot
Oh, you're back.
for
Sorry.
talent.
It caught at when you're talking about David Clark and you were taught by his dad.
Yeah, so I was first taught by Willie Clark, which is Davy's dad. And he's obviously, Davy's gone off to win the Worlds with vocal, which is amazing. So it's a quite a little talent hotspot that's come out of Rotorua.
Wow. Yeah, I had no idea. And one of the questions I was going to ask was, when you said there's rather older people or younger people that just start, how did you keep the interest going? And how did you keep the drive to, keep pushing and practicing more and more and eventually getting to grade 1 level?
They do a lot of kind of little camps in the school holidays for kids in New Zealand, especially around the Central North Island where I grew up. They actually call it the Central North Island Youth Camp. And we go to a little place in the middle of nowhere and get together with bands from all around the North Island. And we have tutors come in and we play tunes and we learn more, and it's good. It's really good. It was one of the biggest things. So I played the piano for a little bit. Couldn't remember how to play it now, but I found that difficult because you'd go home, you'd sit at your piano and you'd practice, and then you'd go to your lessons and you'd learn, and there wasn't much more outside of that. Whereas pipe bands, you'd go to a camp, you'd meet up with different people, you'd make friends. There was solo competitions. You could earn like $20 prize money. That was the best thing when you were a kid.
That's awesome. So do you think solos were, or the camaraderie, but also doing solos in competition was really something that kept you going and wanted to practice more and get better?
Yeah, I've always been a little bit competitive, so I
Right.
enjoyed
And the
that.
$20 and the $20 that you get also, which
Yeah.
is awesome if you're a kid. That's great. And then do you still take solos? Do you still do solos? Like, is it still something that is part of your sort of motivation?
It's not something that I'm particularly interested in at the moment. I enjoy more of the team aspect of band at this point, so I'm putting all my energy into creating the best environment I can and the best music I can for the band. And I might go back to solos one time, but at the moment it's not really something that's taking my interest.
Right. And through that whole progression from, starting and going to camps and playing and stuff, did you ever think, what if I do pipe band drumming as a full-time job? Is this your full-time job? Is it what you do like on a daily
No, it's
basis?
not my full-time job. No, I don't.
But you
So
want
I've
to?
got a couple of no. I'm actually studying at university to be a scientist, an earth scientist, to study, environmental monitoring and soils and atmosphere. So no, this is not going to be a full-time job ever for me. I enjoy it as a hobby, and I want to keep the interest and the excitement that comes with drumming for me. So for that, I'll get a job. So yeah,
Wow.
I've been a dental assistant, a caregiver for at a retirement village, and now I'm going into study. Well, I'm 2/3 of the way through study for a Bachelor of Science.
Wow.
I've got
So
a
I
couple of
love
students,
that.
but it's more of a hobby.
Yeah, I love when I said, did you ever consider it being a full-time job? And straight up, no, absolutely not. Well, like you just like the separation between, I've got my bands, I've got out of the band, I play in the band and I play the drum, and then I have my own thing on the side.
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
I need that. I can't go all into one thing because I'll get bored. And not for lack of interest, but just because I like to try new things and get out and about.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. And so you played with that band, and then I imagine you progressed through the ranks all the way to grade one. What was like the sort of like your highlight at that period when you're just sort of like getting better and better doing solos? Is there one highlight, maybe a trip to Scotland to compete with one of the band that you were playing, or some like nationals that you did great at with a band, or do you have like one moment that defined that sort of period?
I think the biggest kind of turning point was the first time I went down to Christchurch for the New Zealand Summer School. Jack Lee and Reed Maxwell from SFU would always come over and help run the school, and they'd offer a scholarship to their Canadian school, the Piping Hot Summer Drummer. So the first time I went, I'd probably been drumming for about 8 months, and I got the scholarship to go to Canada. And at that point, I was still on the fence about whether I was going to change to tenor or stay with snare. And so that was the turning point. I went to Canada for the Piping Hot Summer Drummer, and then got another scholarship to return the following year. And then I was invited to play with SFU. So it was a very swift progression, and it was a massive roller coaster. So I was very, very fortunate to have, quality, world-class tutorage from very early on, and be given those opportunities and have an amazing supportive family who was happy to let me go and experience all this. So it was pretty swift, because I started drumming when I was about 11, 12. So I played the local season with SFU when I was 14 and went to Worlds with them when I was 15. And then
I was going to ask what year was this?
Because it was a lot of travel.
Imagine. Wait, this is epic. This is such a good like story. So you and at that point you said you've just been drumming for eight months, and you were still on the fence. Like, is it going to be snare? Is it going to be tenor? It was Reed influential in like, I think you should stick to snare, or just because you were in an environment and you were like, wow, I really dig the snare?
Sorry, it broke up. I didn't really get any of that.
Oh, sorry, I can repeat. I was just asking if Reed was influential in telling you to stick to the drum, or were you still on the fence at that point into like picking one or the other?
I don't think Reed actually knew that I was still considering playing tenor. He just thought, right, you want some tutoring? I'll tutor you if you want. And then it was from there. I was just like, wow, drumming's cool. This is what I'm going to do. So it was a while later that I actually told him that I originally wanted to be a tenor drummer. He just kind of laughed at me and thought, whatever. So when that was kind of the only real outside New Zealand influence that I had seen of pipe bands, because it is quite isolating being in New Zealand. You don't really get the same exposure to pipe bands worldwide. So having Reed and Jack come over from Canada to teach at the school every year, it was like, oh wow, these guys are amazing. So that was kind of the goal, was now okay, I really want to play with these people who I see every year and have become friends and who's now my tutors. I really want to play in their band with them. So that was from there. My one goal was, I'm going to play in SFU, and I'm so glad that I did.
Wow, that was your motivation. I guess that's a good way to stay motivated and have a drive to practice towards a goal. Do you what was it like the first time you went to the summer school in Vancouver? I think it's in Vancouver. Like, you were surrounded with people from everywhere, I imagine. What was it like?
Yeah, it was very, very cool. I'd never been overseas in my life. It was the first trip overseas. It was just me and my mum. Mum came with me. We flew into a little place called Kelowna for a couple of days just to get our bearings. It's quite a long flight. It's a direct flight to Vancouver from New Zealand, and it's about 12 or 13 hours or something, but it's quite good because it's direct.
Jesus.
So yeah, we went off there to Canada and went to the school. So the scholarship it's a 2-week school, which is awesome. So you do the 1 week, go down the mountain to the Kamloops Highland Games, and then back up for the second week. So I got a bit of everything, and it so happened that the New Zealand Youth Pipe Band was on a trip that year, and they went to Piping Hot for the second week. So I didn't know about that, but suddenly there was a whole bunch of Kiwis there as well that I got to see, and some of them I'd known from the summer school. So it was very cool. Got to see them and also make friends with people from the other side of the world who liked the same instrument that I did. So it was cool. It was very cool.
Yeah, you must go back from a trip like that, and if you're, I don't know how old you were at the time, but if you're quite young, you go back and you're like, wow, like there are people everywhere that plays drum and pipes and are into it as much as I'm into it, and they have a different accent, and they're cool. Uh, that made you want to go back the second year. What's the process for someone in New Zealand to go? Do you register, or do you have to do something? I don't even know.
You just register online and you just make your way over there and you join the school. So it's
Oh, cool.
huge, it's massive, and they pretty much take over the entire village on the top of a mountain. So it's the Silver Star Mountain Resort. In the winter, it's a ski resort. In the summer, it's mountain biking and pipe bands.
Wow. And then the second year around, you came back, and then you were with the band, or is it the third sort of year that you went back, then you joined the band?
Second year, I play a few competitions with the RMM Grade 3 band and did the summer school. And then the third year, I went back and I did just the local circuit with SFU. So I came in a little bit earlier and then stayed for the local season. Oh, I can't remember the timings.
Nah,
it all kind of
it's okay.
blends into one.
What was
It became a bit of a second home for a while there.
Yeah. That's a lot of travel, and you spend the whole, maybe not the whole summer, but you spend a good chunk of time in Canada and stuff. What was it like? I always like to ask that question, especially to drummer, because I can relate to it. And I remember the first time I went to a vocal practice, and I was maybe 16, 17, and I sat down with grade one players that I had looked up to, and I still remember how I felt. It was amazing, an amazing feeling. What was it like for you when you said I looked up to Reed and Jack, and then here you are in a circle with them? What was it like? What was that feeling?
It was pretty cool. I do remember the first practice I had with them. I just got off the plane and they happened to have a practice that evening. So off I went, put on a drum, played the music, and it was absolutely terrible. And I could see people around me going, taking a deep breath and going, okay, we're gonna have to give this girl a break. But no, I didn't really know. I was jet lagged, I was tired, I was like, wow, I'm playing, this is awesome. But later on I realized that no, looking back, that was a terrible practice, and I'm glad they I didn't give you too much of a ripping for that, but no, it was very good. It was very good.
Did you? So you, and it's also interesting because you were sort of a remote flying player, right? At that time, you spent most of the time in New Zealand, most of the year in New Zealand, and you practiced the stuff by yourself. Were you doing sort of like video or sound sort of recordings with Reed or with the core ahead of coming over, or like what was the process like?
I was mostly doing weekly lessons with Reed to get the music going, and whenever they had a practice weekend, I would join that, like Skype into that, and listen along, play along. The time difference was obviously fun, so sometimes I'd be having quite early or quite late, just trying to immerse myself and understand what's going on. So because I was only doing the local season the first year, I just came in at the start of the local circuit and just played along and then went home before Worlds. For the second season I played with them, I came out in January and stayed right through to Worlds. So I was put up with a lovely family. So yeah, I was able just to be there as a local. Yeah,
oh,
I
wow.
flew
So
out in January when
8 months.
Yeah, yep.
Huh.
So I flew back with Reed when he came out for the New Zealand Summer School that year, and then flew back and stayed and was a local player for the season in Canada. And I did my New Zealand school online, and not very motivating. So I managed to cram everything into the last 3 months and got home.
Wow, what an experience! Do you and also amazing support, for your family to just let you go and have fun and experience something quite unique. What was like the sort of the challenges you felt as you were remote and doing the Skype and having to like practice on your own? Like do you have any sort of like sort of pros and cons to share around that experience?
Yeah, it is tricky. So you've got recordings, obviously, you send recordings, you listen to videos, you watch videos, but it's never the same. So no matter how much you practice, you've always got to be conscious that when you go in, you have to think on your feet and be able to adapt, because little nuances will be different, a dynamic will be different, or the way something's phrased, or there's all these little things that are very difficult. You can do your best, but it's actually tricky to pick up on all these things when you're playing remote. So the biggest thing is being adaptable and flexible, and just going in with like 100% focus so that you can switch on and adapt. And being so young and inexperienced, that was the biggest challenge for me. I wasn't able to just, slot in and make it work. It took me a while to adapt, because I didn't quite understand, they're like, oh, your phrasing's not quite right. What does phrasing mean? I was still quite early on, so it took a while for me to understand, but they were very supportive, and I got through, and I played 4 circles. So it was pretty amazing.
Yeah. I imagine. Do you think that's beneficial now that you're a leading drummer, or if a whatever grade? I think it doesn't matter. But if you have flying members, do you feel like you can put yourself in their shoe and kind of understand where they come from and help them?
Yeah, definitely, because I was that person once. So I know how daunting it is. Um, I know how much of a challenge it is, and so I'll always try and give people as much of my time as I can. I'll always try, and because I was the young person who was just trying their best to make a grade 1 circle, I try and give that opportunity to someone else now. So each year I try and give a person my time to get them through, who's got good goals and aspirations to get to grade 1, and if they're motivated, then they'll get an hour or so of my time each week just to learn the music and talk through how to come in and pretty much kind of mentor them. And I don't know if it's worked a little bit, so I've got a couple of people come through, which has been awesome. So I feel like I've been able to give back, so that's pretty big
Wow.
for me.
That is awesome to hear. Just to know that you've been in that position, you know what it's like, and you want to sort of give it back and help someone to come through the rank. That's great to hear. Good for you for doing it. What was thinking back about those 9 months that you spent in Canada and then went to the Worlds? What was, again, one thing, maybe a trip with the band or a practice or something? I imagine playing at the Worlds, with the band being in the circle is probably the top one like thing that you have in mind. But if you had something that year, that season, you were like, wow, I'm so happy I left my family, I left my country, I left my friends, and I'm playing the drum with the band. What was like that one thing?
It probably was the playing at Worlds, because I came off the first circle, and it was when it was qualifying and finals. And so we came off the first circle, and it was the one that's not even down the chute. It's just the one in the middle of the paddock. We played in the MSR, and I just remember coming off and being like, I had obviously had all this emotion in me from building up and building this moment up. And I just came off and just like ugly cried. So there's some terrible photos of me somewhere just like bawling my eyes out, because I played a circle at Worlds, and looking back, it's so silly, because it's just another patch of grass, but the atmosphere and the build up to this big event is quite a lot. And so I got there and I'm just like, oh my god, I did it. So that was crazy. But we did heaps. I mean, lots of practice weekend, lots of different competitions. We flew to Paisley for the weekend to do the major in Paisley that year.
Oh wow! So you actually went twice to Scotland.
We went twice to Scotland that year. I don't really count the first time, because I was so unbelievably jet lagged. I wouldn't even be able to tell you where we stayed. I had the most terrible flight path, because at that point, funds are getting a little bit tight. So I was like, oh, I'll just find a cheap flight. So it stopped in like 3 different places. I went from like Vancouver to Toronto to Halifax to Glasgow. And then it was just like 3 or 4 different time zones. And by the time I got there, I was like, I don't even know where I am. So I think I slept the entire, was it Friday, or I'm not sure, did a bit of a practice or something, and then played it, and then went home. And where did we come? I couldn't tell you.
Wow. Yeah, it's a big trip for, I mean, a band in Vancouver, it's massive. Bands in New Zealand, it's big trip. I'm always curious, like as you're playing or before you go on, do you have a part of you that say, I come from so far, I spent an amount of money and I put all this energy. I'm like actually I'm the opposite on the planet to where I live or where I'm from. Do you have that added pressure of like, I better not fuck up?
I think it almost takes some of the pressure away actually, because we're from so far away. No one really has heard us live. It's we're just going there to put our best performance. And being such a this season we were such a green band. I didn't really have the full nationals group that I had in New Zealand because of money commitments, personal commitments. So I got a couple of young guys in, and the whole kind of purpose of that trip was not to win the worlds. It was not to win the drumming. It was to get experience for people so that it then becomes easier to play again. So they can then be more relaxed on home, so they can come into worlds again and actually and do it for a bigger purpose. So for me, there was no pressure. For me, the pressure was trying to keep all the drummers calm and keep them happy. So when they go on, it's just another performance. It's just playing the good music that we've put together. And the judge is going to hear what the judge is going to hear. But as long as we're happy with what we've put forward, that's all right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's awesome. What was after that year with SFU, you come back to New Zealand, you cram on your studies, and you I hope you made it happen and you had a great result. What was after? What was your mind? You've been going to Scotland to Canada 3 years in a row. You're probably like, I like Canada, but I prefer New Zealand. I'm kidding, I love Canada, but what was your thinking at that point? You're like, do I want to do another trip over to Vancouver, or what? Yeah, what was it like?
It was a different time. I was probably on the verge of burnout just from like the sheer scale of what I'd been doing the last few years, and it all happened so fast. And I think I was struggling a little bit to cope with all the added pressures and stress of being in top level all the time. And I was still in high school. I was maybe second to last year of high school. So I needed to finish high school to get that, just in case I wanted to do whatever I wanted to do in the future. I had no idea at that point, but I knew that I had to finish high school so I could set myself up for whatever I was going to do. Yeah, there was just a lot going on. So I had actually booked another trip to Canada, but a few personal things happened and it wasn't going to happen. So I had to cancel that. And a little bit last minute, and it was a bit gutting because I felt like I'd committed and I was letting the band down. I don't know, I just felt a little bit deflated that I couldn't go, but there was so much going on behind the scenes in my own life that it wasn't going to happen. So I took a break and I took a year off, and then I went back to Rotorua where I started, and I took on the lead role because there's lots of young kids that were losing guidance a little bit, and I wanted to get back and just to like ease back into it because it had been a lot and I needed a break. So what better to go right back to the roots, start at the start again, and just refine the purpose of my drumming again. So yeah,
that is awesome to hear, and not awesome in a way that you had this moment where it went really high, really fast, and all awesome, and then wait, well, because I feel like it happens to a lot of people. It doesn't matter the level. Sometimes you have this moment where, and it was happened to me too, where it's like, wait, am I enjoying it anymore? What am I doing this for? And you kind of question things. So, did you? I don't want to dive too much into it, but did you have sort of like all the people around that, or you felt like you could have conversation with people around that relate to that moment where everyone goes through, where it's like, maybe I need a break altogether. It happens to a lot of people.
Yeah, I now know that does happen to a lot of people, but back then it was like, the guys in the top level, they're always at the top level. They've never stopped. Why am I stopping? Mum and dad have put a lot of, funds and energy and time into me doing this hobby, so I can't quit. Am I a bad person for not going back? There was a lot, and there wasn't many people I actually knew who'd taken a break back then, because the only people I knew were a small circle of friends in New Zealand who were slowly going up through and hadn't really, gone so fast. And then the people who I knew from Canada who had been at the top for a while now and weren't taking a break and were like, oh, why are you taking a break? So it was kind of like this weird thing where I was like, oh, have I done a bad thing? But I didn't do a bad thing. I know that now. I did what I had to do for me. And I'm glad I did it. I'm glad I went back to Rotorua, and we won grade 4B twice in a row. We were
Here we
undefeated.
go.
It was excellent. And they finally got promoted to grade 4A, and then I handed it off to one of my students who's still taking it, and they're still going strong. So
that is awesome. Yeah. And now, years later, you can look back and be like, well, I'm glad I took a break, and and things are going pretty well. What was it like after a break? You don't play for, I'm laughing because that was me. Stopped for a solid year or two, and God, it was hard to get back. Just like playing. What was it like when you stopped? You completely stopped for a year and then you came back?
Kind of. I think I was still doing solos at that point, so I stopped band for a year. I kept on the solos. I actually booked a plane ticket to the World Solos for Juvenile 5 or something, just to keep myself drumming, because I was like, I have to keep drumming somehow. I can't go cold turkey, otherwise I'll never get back to where I was. So I thought, okay, I'll go to World Solos. But it was like the amount of just about physical pushing I had to make myself practice, I had to make myself play. And in the end, it was quite good. I think I got a 5th at the World Solo, so I was pretty happy with that.
Amazing.
And I did a couple of solos around New Zealand, so that was quite nice. And so it was good just to do my own thing for a little bit, not have to worry about anyone else's schedule. I was just doing my solos, and I was just cruising along. And yeah, it was nice, but it was good to get back into the band, because it is. The biggest thing is it's a team. It's like a team sport, but it's a team musical instrument. That's weird, but yeah, it's a team thing. You make friends and you hang out with people. So that was something that I missed. So going back into bands was nice, but it was also nice just to go back to the basics.
Be with people, yeah, no, totally, and I can totally relate to that. And I hope people that listen, and maybe they are at a moment where they don't know why they're doing it, they need a break, or they're about to come back, and they probably come back because they missed the camaraderie and just playing with other people. Playing on your couch on the pad is nice, but playing with other people around the table is nothing quite like it. Right, and then now you are lead drummer of Auckland District. What was it like? So was it something that you were looking for, like a leading drummer position? It happened that you go asked maybe, or that the opportunity came about? Like what was the sort of like the story behind it?
I'd always had in the back of my mind that it would be nice to lead a higher grade band. But I'd come from somewhere, I only led grade 4B. That's all I'd done. I'd sort of I'd gone over and played in the corps in grade 1, but I hadn't led anything other than grade 4B. So I was trying to get a bit more experience. I was working my way back into grade 1 at this point. And then the Auckland District Pipe Band, the lead drummer had to step back for her own reasons, and they needed someone to take over. The band was in a bit of a dip as bands go through. It was not in a very strong position, and they were trying to find somebody who would come in probably from overseas to give it a big boost. So they asked me to fill in. So I filled in for a season. Well, I filled in for, originally it was just till Christmas. Can you fill in till Christmas? I was like, yeah, all right. There was some tunes there. We'll just keep going with what's there. We'll just cruise through to Christmas, and someone will come in and shake it up. It'll be great. And then Christmas came round, and then nothing was really happening. And then Nationals, like, hey, you're going to play Nationals. All right, so I'm leading Nationals. It was me and 4 other people. One of them was out of town. 2 of them were high school students, and the last one was, I don't know, turned up when he felt like it. No, I'm kidding. Don't put that in there. But we were a very kind of disheveled bunch, and we went into Nationals, and we I had to get my dad on bass. It was a shambles.
All right, so it was like a mixed match.
But looking back, it was like, this band is not going to die. We're going to, it will never die, but we're going to play at Nationals. We need the numbers. So I think we had minimum snare numbers. We had my dad on bass. And we had two tenors, and one of them broke their wrist and couldn't flourish. So that's how I went on to nationals that year. Temporary
Yes.
lead drummer, four other guys, and someone's dad on bass, quite literally. So it was funny. It was good fun. It was at Hawke's Bay Nationals, I think. And lo and behold, we didn't do very well, but somehow the senior behind the scenes of the band decided they liked what I did, and they came up and said, "Would you like to stay on and be a lead drummer for at least 5 years?" And I said, "Why not? Let's give it a crack." So that was pretty exciting. So
Awesome.
I must have done something right with my group of misfits. So
clearly, and you guys went to the Worlds, and I heard you guys, and it was sounding very good. So you clearly are doing a good job.
thank you.
Was
Thank you.
When you said this band is not going to die, obviously now you're so invested in the band, you're leading drummer, but at the time, was Auckland District, was it a band that you were attached to? Was it, were you, yeah, like, was it because it was the local band, or you had family that played in the band, or you had played in the band?
I played in the band for one season prior to going overseas to Canada, or to SFU. Maybe it was, I can't remember what year. I got dropped, but it was a great group of people. The atmosphere in the band is like none other. Everyone knows everyone. We're all pals, pipe core, midsection, snare drum. We're all just friends. And there's been some members of the band who have not left for about 40 years, and they will never leave. And it's the kind of band that it's just a big old family. So and they're so accommodating. So we were still living in Hamilton, and driving up. So whenever we came up for a weekend practice, there was always someone's house to stay at. You're never short of a bed. It was good. So I knew that was the grade one band in New Zealand that I would be playing with until the end of time. I'd like, I'm pretty invested to ride the thick and thin with that band now. It's home. It's good. And
Nice.
My partner was pipe major, so that played a big role.
Oh, right. Okay. So it was like someone that at least it was pipe major before you joined, or it was at the same time?
He was pipe major from, I'm not sure what season, but before I was lead drummer. So he moved up from Wellington to take over the pipe major role, and we'd travel up. So I was just playing the band, and then that's probably why I was the best fit to take over for the temporary thing, because I was not going to go anywhere else.
Not too much convincing. That's amazing. I didn't know that. It's a great story. I don't think I know a lot of bands that have lead and drummer, pipe major being partners in life.
There's a good reason for that.
Yeah, I'm trying to think, but I don't think I know anyone else. And all right. So what was the transition? Now you're leading a grade one band. You're doing a good job. Was it intimidating in the first few months, or because it was kind of like, all right, let's go through Christmas and then let's go through the nationals? It kind of like you went with the flow, or were you like kind of stressed? You had a lot of music to write, and all of a sudden you have to build a core, and
Yeah, it was major imposter syndrome for a long time, and sometimes I still think, what am I doing? Like, I'm not really qualified for this. But is anyone really qualified? Not really. It's not some sort of thing you have to go through a rigorous training to be a lead drummer. Everyone has to get there some way or another. So I think, it's a real thing. Imposter syndrome is real, but I think I've gotten through that, and I'm enjoying it. But that's the biggest thing, is just finding the ways to enjoy it and making sure that I'm doing it for, I've got a goal and I'm working towards that, and I'm making sure that the people in the core have got things that they're wanting to get out of it, and they're achieving that, because it's expensive. It's not, no one's paid to play pipe bands. It's very expensive, everybody. So making sure that everyone's engaged in the way that they're getting out of it what they want to, because we're putting a lot in. It helps to keep people around and keep morale high.
What was like sort of the you've been in a position for a number of years now? It's been a couple of years, or was the Worlds your first season?
Yeah. No, that's a good question. I think it was maybe 2019, 18. I'm not sure. No, not 2018. I can't remember when I first did. I've done two nationals because we had COVID nationals and that didn't happen. So we've done Hawke's Bay. There was one that didn't happen. And then we recently had, what was the nationals we just had? I can't remember, whatever that one was. Christchurch. And now Auckland. So this is my fourth season.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's been a few years.
Yeah.
Do you what's a year looking like? I was talking to pipe major of a New Zealand Great One band a couple of months ago before the World, Stuart from Manawatu, and I was curious to hear from a band in New Zealand what the year looked like. All right, because if you're in Scotland, the first major is in May, and you give a break in like September. You have the World Solos in October, but then you start sort of like preparing music, and then you work through the winter, and then when comes summer's competition. But for you guys, it's a little bit more complicated, because summer and winter are reversed. But you have in March, which is right in the middle of sort of the season for you guys, in the middle of the off season for us, you have the nationals. What does a year look like in terms of preparation from on your side as a leading drummer of a New Zealand Great One band?
So on a regular year that we don't go overseas, we don't go to Worlds, we have nationals and then we have a break for like 3 months or so, and then we start building back into it in the winter. June, July, we start kind of Wednesday nights only, local people. And then our first competition for us is the first weekend of November. It's at the Hamilton Gardens. It's quite pretty, very, very small competition, but we generally go to that one. And there's a mini bands just before that. So next weekend, we've got mini bands in Auckland, and it's just, mini bands, a couple of drummers, a couple of pipers, put a little show on. So we ease into it. It's very, very laid back. And then our first kind of major is Square Day in Palmerston North, and that's in December. And then because Christmas then falls in the middle of our season, we have a little bit of break over Christmas. Then we have to build back into it again in the new year. So when we say break, it's not really a break. We take a couple of weeks just over Christmas, New Year, so everyone can do what they got to do with their, go and have family holidays and stuff. And then we're right back in 100%, going through January, February, and then March nationals. And then we did have a little break, and then we come back into it in the winter and do the same thing again. But with the Worlds, we don't really stop. So we come in the winter, do our nationals, don't stop, keep going, go to Worlds, and then you come back from Worlds and it's only a couple months before you got to go for local season again, so you just keep going. And because we had the COVID season that got cancelled for us before our last nationals, we didn't really stop through that. We had to do our isolation stuff, but when we could, we came into band. So it'll be going on like 3 years. The people in our band haven't really had a break. So that's why on our Worlds trip, we did the Lorient Festival, so people could have a holiday as part of their trip. I went to Lorient and loved it. I'd go back in a heartbeat.
Oh, is that right? So I thought, I thought you guys were there, because I know a few people in the band Auckland, and that's where I'm from, and I went to spend the first weekend, and I was pretty sure I saw some photos, but I didn't see the band. It's a whole city, right? It's a big party anyway. But I was so so you guys went. How was it? What was it that you loved? Did you go to the Bag Out competition?
Fun. Yep, we watched the Bag Out. That was amazing. It's just such a different musical experience. That is very cool. I'd never really heard of a Bag Out band before, so it was completely different. I was like, wow, this is amazing. So many instruments. We're like, from that trip, we are so ready to play like a full Bag Out set as our street march this year, but we'll probably get disqualified, so probably won't. But but yeah, it was amazing. It was new, it was fresh, it was different. We were just playing music, and you'd go out to do your little parade thing, and there wouldn't really be anyone around. You'd strike up, and then woof, there's people all around you for as far as you could see. It was completely different than anything, and we loved it. Yeah, loved it.
It must have been a good trip as a band. I'm pretty sure the band had done it before when I think Glenn was the
Yes.
leading drummer, because I remember
Yeah.
he judged the Grade One drumming, which was
Yeah.
actually the only and first foreigner to actually judge the Baggot competition from a drumming standpoint, which was a great
Oh
experience.
wow.
And yeah, so that was many years ago, but it must have been an amazing trip to do like a band sort of like team building and hang out and play and discover new music before you go
Yeah.
to Scotland. Yeah. Do you think that was like it made obviously it made the trip better from like a fun perspective, but do you feel like then you got to Scotland and you were tighter as a core or as a unit, as a band?
Yeah, definitely. So we had most of the band. Some people couldn't do the length of time of work, so they just met us in Scotland. But most of the band came to Lorient, and so we'd do a practice in the morning for a few hours for Worlds, dedicated to Worlds, a nice intensive practice. Then go away and cure last night's hangover, have a bit of a sleep, and then go to the parades and events in the evening. Um, and play there. And it was, it was so much fun. We all got COVID though, so we're all sick, and it was the most unhealthy band you'd ever seen. But
No.
we made it through. I'm not actually sure if it's COVID. We all got really sick though, so I lost my voice and I was just croaking away for the whole week. It was so bad. But no, it was really good fun, and it brought the band closer, and we were able to enjoy what we were playing more, and so we're more focused and more engaged, because it wasn't just like you go to Scotland, it rains, you play your pipes, you do a competition, you go home. It was, we went to Lorient, it was sunny, it was the atmosphere, there was all the right conditions to get the best out of people. Yeah, it was good.
Yeah, that's awesome. I'm glad you had a good time. I mean, I'm glad when people go to where I'm from and they have a good time. It's good advertising. To everyone listening, you guys should go to Brittany and the festival.
Yes, you should.
It was actually my first time back in a quite a long time, and I loved it. I forgot how just good the atmosphere is and the people and just like the music. It's music everywhere. I mean, the whole weekend at least. Sweet. And then it was a full year. I sort of knew about the New Zealand season if you're a band competing in the nationals and competing in Scotland. And sometimes when you're at the Worlds and you're a band or you're from Scotland and you hear a band from New Zealand come over, and you might think, they prep just like we prep, but actually no, it was a literally 12 months of practice, the whole year, having to sometimes learn 3 or 4 medleys if you change your medley in between the nationals and the Worlds, which is very demanding. So I imagine those years are insane in terms of like just energy, time, and yeah, making sure you put your best.
And especially for some of the younger people in the bands, because in New Zealand we only learn one medley, and so to then ask people to learn another medley, to have that in the back pocket just to pull out at top level is quite daunting for some people, because they've never had to do it before. 2 MSRs is not uncommon, but 2 medleys, that's a lot of music. And then with us going to Lorient, we had a few, we had a bit of a concert repertoire that we were pulling out. So there was the sheer volume for people who had come in. I had a couple of drummers who'd just come in for the Worlds and Lorient trip, and they had to learn everything from scratch. So they did amazing, and it was very promising to see how much effort people were putting in, and they believed in the dream that we were selling to go overseas, which is pretty cool. So, and they had a great time, which was just finished it off. They did their job, but they also had a good time. So that was very cool.
Yeah, this is great to hear.
People.
It's great to hear, because you wouldn't think, again, like if you're listening to the band and you think, well, they just do 2 MSRs, 2 medleys like we do, and that's it. But you had guys that came over for the trip and played for the Worlds and had to learn all that repertoire and stuff like that. It's impressive. It's also a lot of scores to write for you. Do you have a strategy in terms of like how you approach writing music, or you just like, all right, Monday I do real, Wednesday I do the jigs and whatever. What's your process?
My process is like listen to the tune for a while, so get the pipe tune in my head, kind of feel the music, and then get nagged endlessly from the drum corps to where's the music. So then I finally write it. But I like to take a while to unpack the pipe music and kind of interpret it, for a while before putting pen to paper, so that I'm not just like chucking notes on a page. I'm actually trying to write something that I've felt, that I've been kind of immersing myself in for a little bit. So everyone's different. That's what I do. It's worked all right. And then sometimes, because it's not full time for me, I don't do full time drumming. I will get other people in the corps to write a tune or two, and it does create more diversity in our scores, because I find that after a while I get a very predictable pattern in my scores. So to have somebody else write a score, it does create quite a different point of interest in a set piece. It's just someone's different perspective, and what I hear in music is often not what somebody else hears, and that's the brilliance of it, because it's music. It's entirely interpretational. So it's good to have people that are right there to help and keen to write some music.
Wow, this is awesome. Yeah, you don't hear that often. Most of the time, not that it's right or wrong. I think it's a great approach because it saves time to you and it keeps people engaged, like you mentioned, and also add diversity. I think it's great. Do you is it something that naturally came because you're like, there's so much music to write, or whatever, or was it always something that you felt strongly about adding more just variety in terms of the content in a medley or MSR?
It's a bit of both. Usually I'll write a full MSR because I like it to be quite continuous and, fit together with a similar style. So often I'll do the MSRs, but some of the medley, just to get, because it's nice to have if there's there's obviously change in time signature and music type. So to have somebody else in the drum corps to kind of play on that and put their perspective, and it can be a bit more creative. So yeah. And it's also good because it's what I was saying earlier, people need to get out of the experience some goals and things. And if someone's goal is to understand, score writing more, they'll have a go at writing a score. And what they write might more often than not is not what goes into the band, but they've had a go. And then I can then look through it and say, look, this bit's really good. Why did you do this? If you listen to the music, it might be better off suited for something like this. And then we'll talk about it and tidy it up and then put it out. So it gives everyone a chance to learn and grow, and works for me. Less music for me to write.
This is great, and you have a good point too. Where again, the reason I'm having this conversation doesn't matter if you're grade 1 or grade 2 or grade 3 or grade 4. Sometimes you can play in grade 1, and you just don't have to be involved in music or sound or leadership. You just show up and play, which is totally fine. And then some people are very interested in doing the sound, and other people are very interested in doing the music. But most of the time, especially music, it's one person does the writing. If you don't have, it's almost like cooking. If you don't need to cook, and then you're not gonna learn how to cook. And I think that it's nice that you're giving everyone sort of the option, and if they want to, they can dive into it and then learn. At least they'll know how to do it. I think that's terrific. It's great. And less music to write.
Also for me, it's not. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And being the lead drummer is not something I want to do forever. So to be able to have somebody who's coming along beside and pretty much getting ready to take over when I need to step back is crucial, because then it's a seamless exchange. There's no kind of big, bomb goes off in the band and stuff starts to fall apart. It's seamless and it's smooth, and it's all good. So.
Yeah, well, I like the thinking. I want to be mindful of your time. We're 15 minutes in, but to wrap it up, what's coming up for you or the band? I imagine you're off. Summer is about around the corner, which everyone in Europe is probably jealous of. And are you doing the solos, or what's planned?
What's planned? Well, summer's coming up, so that means we'll do Square Day, and then we'll take a break. And if the weather's good, get the boat out, go fishing, do all the things that needs to happen outside of pipe bands, and then crack straight back into it.
Wow.
And yeah, we've moved to the beach. We've moved to the beach now, so I'm really just to have more freedom, just to unwind at the ocean.
And not think about pipe band. Is fishing like your main hobby? Is that what you do? I love asking that question. Sometimes people think that all pipe band people do is pipe bands. But there are tons of other stuff that people do. Yeah. Is fishing like your hobby?
Fishing's my hobby. I grew up fishing. I grew up on the ocean, that more so than I did pipe banding. So for me, taking the boat out, going fishing, that's what I've always done. That's what I'll keep doing.
That's awesome. That's great to hear. Yeah, well, sweet. Thank you so much. Sorry again for mixing up the 1 hour, and I'm thankful that you waited an extra hour for me. But thank you for chatting. Is there anything you want to add or promote or give a shout out to, or just whatever before we wrap up?
Not really. No.
No.
Don't have any endorsements. Don't keep drumming.
Oh, good. Yeah, no, it was great. Here in town, and especially I hope people that will listen will, especially the collaborative aspect of like running the core, like you were mentioning. These are things that sometimes you don't think a grade one lead drummer or a grade one band would do, and just your approach, and also how you left very early New Zealand to go to Canada. I think it's epic. It's a great journey. So yeah, this is awesome. Thank you so much. Enjoy the rest of the day.
Thank you for having me on. It's been good.
Yeah, of course. And then good luck to the band for Square Day, first competition Square Day in December, right?
Thank you. Yes, in December. Yep, early December.
All right. Well,
good luck. I'm sure there's a live stream, so look out for that one. Thank
All right.
you.
Cool. Yeah, we'll do. Thank you so much. Enjoy the rest of the day. Bye.
No worries.